Let's move to Saturday now. We've got Saturday's series are very intriguing, both of them. We've got 2-2 in both of them here. So it's a situation where, we're down to best two of three now. Pittsburgh, Washington, Winnipeg, Nashville, starting with Pittsburgh, Washington. Now, both games are tomorrow night. NBC's got the Kentucky Derby all day, all afternoon coverage tomorrow. So there's no afternoon hockey tomorrow as a result. They're both night games. That's good. I'm glad they've got the schedule the way they do. Putting on an NHL playoff game for years, they've done this on the Kentucky Derby Saturday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific is total disrespect. Totally asinine to do that for an NHL playoff game, putting it on that early. They're doing the right thing now. Put them on at night. Put them on after the Derby, and that's exactly what they're doing. Pittsburgh, Washington, 7:05 p.m. Eastern face-off. We've got Washington minus 110 to minus 115 home favorites. The total 5.5 shaded to the over at about minus 120. The Pittsburgh Penguins really put their foot down last night. Good all-around performance for the most part. Took care of business, won 3-1 against the Washington Capitals. One of their better defensive games. Matt Murray had stepped up after he's shown some weakness at times throughout the playoffs, not just in this round, but even in the first round. There were a couple games where Matt Murray just didn't play all that great for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He played much better last time out, getting this series even. Now the scene shifts to Washington, and it puts a little more pressure now back on the Capitals. You're 2-2. You never beat this team in the postseason. You never win in this round in the postseason. Now you're 2-2, best two of three. You're at home. You need this game. You don't want to go down 3-2 going back to Pittsburgh. So how do the Washington Capitals respond to this sort of pressure? I'm not willing to bet this side one way or the other. I still think Pittsburgh finds a way to win this series, but I'm going to stay out of the side. The last time I was given a 5.5 in this series from a total standpoint, it went over the total. It was the one and only over in this series, the 4-3 game, which was game 3, and that total opened 5.5, and then it was bet up to 6. We're seeing this one open at 5.5, and if they're going to give me that 5.5, I'll take the over. I think that's value in a series like this after a game where it was a little tighter, a lot of missed chances, posts, missed open nets on power plays from both sides in game 4. I think you get a little bit more finish offensively from both teams Saturday night. So over 5.5 is the way I'll bet this one. Minus 120, Pittsburgh, Washington, game 5. Let's start with Andrew this time for this series. Pittsburgh, Washington, game number 5 Saturday night. Andrew, what do you like here?
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that, Ian. The over 5.5, I like that number a lot. And when I look at this series, guys, and I've talked about this, and I've talked about how teams are different in the playoffs, etc., and I can go on and on about it. But the fact is, we're getting now into crunch time. I mean, as these series go on and on, and then we get to the later half of them, guys, we're getting into crunch time, we're getting into clutch time, and it's where we have to see these guys really step up and play their actual game and come together as a group. And I think that that's the part the Capitals still don't know how to do. And what I said on the late night on anger management or the late night anger management show with you and Gabian was that I thought that collectively as a group they would come together yesterday and find a way to win that game. And when I said that, I didn't mean I think that they'll win 6-0, but they'll find a way to get it done. And that exactly that they did. And I just don't think that Washington has it in them collectively to find a way to and the thing about this Penguins team, and no one can take away from them, is that you can realistically have Malkin, Crosby, Kessel, all on a different line. I mean, the thing that makes the Pittsburgh Penguins so special is that they can stick any guy. They call up some guy from the AHL, stick him on the top line, play him. Oh, we'll play him with Sidney Crosby because Crosby's that talented. He can make any of those young guys look good. I mean, you look at some of these guys that have been brought up just from the minors or anywhere. Brought up, they stick them on the first line with Crosby, then they've got a second line, a third line, and even a fourth line that can be dangerous. And that's what really hurts Washington because eventually they're gonna run out. They're gonna run out of scores. They're gonna run out of guys that can really be lethal and be dangerous. I mean, if we keep Matt Murray even medium, like just decent skill, decent, no slip ups, no weak goals get let in. Overall, this Pittsburgh Penguins team is going to outlast this Washington Capitals team. And I'm not saying they're going to just go ahead and crush them. They could win every game with a goal and with 5 minutes to go, and it wouldn't surprise me. But I think this Pittsburgh team is still here, and this Capitals team is still down here. So I would look at Pittsburgh in this game, but I'm more confident in the over 5.5. Get on that early. And anyone that thought Pittsburgh was kind of out of this series, it blows my mind.
All right, so over 5.5. Andrew in agreement with me on the total there, over 5.5 for Pittsburgh, Washington, Game 5. Alex B. Smith, Pittsburgh, Washington. What do you like here in this game?
I'm looking at the Penguins here in this spot. I think this is the time that we've seen them shine countless times, over the years where, all right, it's a 2-2 series. They're playing a team that they know that they have had the better of mentally, and on paper and on the ice, in all facets of the game for quite some time now. The pressure now is back on Washington in the sense of they're going home. Can they, muster up enough to get the 3-2 lead and then go back to Pittsburgh? I think there's a lack of pressure. Everything's a little bit easier now for Pittsburgh because they know that we've found a way to beat these guys, and even at our not playing our best game, we still can find a way to beat them. You got everybody back now, Hagelin and Malkin, those guys that were gone early in the series. So there's no excuses in that sense. Obviously, you got the Carter Austin Reese out from that hit, and I think that, like I said, that sparked something, in Pittsburgh as well too. Not now they don't have to worry about Tom Wilson. That's a huge little relief of pressure as well. They don't have to worry about somebody coming in, possibly blindsiding a guy, knocking a guy out of the game out of nowhere. And even you saw the frustration boil over at the end of the last game with Oshie and Letang. Oshie, a pretty mild mannered guy, swinging away at Letang and so forth. So now, you've seen that frustration mount a lot more with Washington, where Pittsburgh, it's okay, let's just play our game, keep doing the things that we've been doing that's got us here and got us through this team and through these series for the last several years now. And I think we're going to see that. And we're getting a really good price here. You can find it even money or minus $1.05. I think the Penguins are going to go back home with a chance to close it out. So I'm looking at them tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, if you're basing this on past years, it's hard not to make a case for Pittsburgh in this spot because this is where the adversity, you face it head on, 2-2. Best of two or three. You've got a really good chance in the series if you win this game. Let's see what the Washington Capitals are made of. We know Pittsburgh can live up to moments like this. Do we know if the Washington Capitals can live up to moments like this? We don't know. That being said, I will say this about Washington. Since they were down 2-0 in that series against Columbus, they played some damn good hockey. They played some of their best hockey of the entire season, regular season and playoffs. Braden Holtby has clearly reestablished his game to a great extent in terms of providing steady, stabilized goaltending for the Washington Capitals. But now you just gave up the little edge you had with that last loss in Game 4, and now you're 2-2. Now you're at home. Fans are going nuts for you, but they're also going to be a little bit tight, I think, in that building. 2-2. They know if you don't win this game and defend home ice, you're going back to Pittsburgh down 3-2, facing the prospects of having to win 2 straight games against this team that you A, never beat in the postseason, and B, in a round you never advanced past in the postseason. So that's what's staring the Washington Capitals right between the eyes. I agree with the commenter in the chat there about Kessel. He's got to get going for Pittsburgh. He's the one. There's a couple of guys there. Again, they're relying a lot on this Crosby and Gensel group, and of course Malkin has the one goal as well last night. Where's Brassard too? Derek Brassard and Brian Rust and Connor Sherry, who's capable of scoring goals and has done that in playoffs past. Where the hell's he been? I mean, there's a bunch of guys right now for the Pittsburgh Penguins, which is surprising to me, but gosh, if they ever get some of these second, third, fourth liners to pop in a goal or two to help out this Crosby, Gensel, and Hornquist group, along with Malkin, God, it's going to be tough to stop Pittsburgh at that point if they could ever get those guys going, because we know that top line has been impossible to stop for anybody here so far in the playoffs against this Pittsburgh team. Let's get to Dana Lane, Washington, Pittsburgh here, Game 5. Dana, go for it.
Yeah, can Connor Sherry show up anytime now? I mean, he's
Exactly.
been non-existent. I mean, you want to talk about Phil Kessel being non-existent. I mean, that's true. I mean, Phil at least has a goal. I mean, Connor Sherry, I realize he's, getting 12 minutes a game, but the fact of the matter is, I mean, when Pittsburgh has been successful in the past, Connor Sherry was a household name. I mean, you started talking about him like, hey, where did this guy come from? And you're right about and it might have something to do with playing with Brassard as well, who has been absolutely horrific since coming to the Penguins. And Brian Rust has been okay, and so it's kind of the same situation as the previous series we've talked about, where the top 6 has been completely dominant. The only outside of Rust, though, I mean, these guys aren't getting any block shots. I mean, they're just kind of floating. They're non-existent. They're not making an impact impact on the ice, and that really is bothers me a little bit headed into this game in Washington because this is a Capitals team. Although they lost this game, didn't allow double digits to this high-powered Pittsburgh Penguin offense in any of the periods in Game 4. So I think if you're Washington and you go through your optional skate today, I think you got to feel pretty good about that headed back. That hey, look, the series is still in our hands. We have to play well tonight, but I think ultimately it's going to play out. Like the Vegas series is going to play out, where Washington wins their home game tonight. Pittsburgh says enough is enough, and they win the last two. But one thing too is perhaps when we were doing our season preview, we were doing it kind of our postseason preview. We were kind of doing it on the premise that Braden Holtby wasn't Braden Holtby, and this is a guy that's had a fantastic career, especially in the postseason. I mean, his save percentage in his career is over 93%, with his goals against average is just a tick over 2. So he does come to play when the postseason starts. It just he didn't have that kind of regular season that I mean his numbers weren't that bad, but there was a time that he basically lost his number one job. I mean, it was kind of back and forth with him. So I don't think when it went into the postseason that we had nearly the amount of confidence that we normally would in a goaltender of his caliber. Also, as well, the Washington Capitals were in a game that one goal barely trickled over the line. That was Malkin's goal. The other one was an empty netter. So you're really looking at one bona fide goal. And this is a game where Alex Ovechkin didn't have a shot on goal in over 20 minutes of hockey, and they're still right there with the Penguins. So I'm gonna take a chance minus $1.10. I try not to make anything more than simplistic in the postseason. I like playing home teams, especially when I'm getting a decent price. I'll take the Capitals in this one, but I think Pittsburgh wins at home, and then again takes one from Washington in DC.
All right, so there we go. So a Washington, Pittsburgh maybe finished to this series in the last 3 games, says Dana Lane. So he's on Washington here.
No. Pittsburgh's not done. Pittsburgh's
Yeah.
going to win the cup. I'm just saying, I think Washington's going to win this, and then Pittsburgh wins the next 2. And I know I'm really painting myself the corner with 2 of these series, but I don't think Pittsburgh's done. I think it's just a matter of flicking on that switch and being better than Washington, which they are.
And maybe they need backs against the wall facing elimination in a game 6 should they lose tomorrow night to be facing that kind of spot where, hey, we know now next loss and we're packing our bags and we're playing golf for the next few months. So that might get the Pittsburgh Penguins' attention if it gets to that. Dana says it might, though, because he's on Washington here, minus 110. For Game 5, and it's funny because you look at the scoring here for some of these guys, and you saw Jacob Vrana score a goal for Washington, you saw Chandler Stevenson score a goal for Washington in this series. Believe it or not, the Washington depth forwards, which I criticized, they're playing Pittsburgh's depth forwards even in this series, pretty much, at least from what I've seen so far, and that's definitely not something I expected. But Pittsburgh's depth forwards, we know there's better in them. See if we get it from them in Game 5.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to our channel. Now, we've put a lot of work into producing all these free videos, so please help us out and keep all our content free for you forever by simply liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Now, not to mention, a visit to our industry-leading website will warm the hearts of all our SBR employees, especially myself. Now, the links are over there to the left, so do check those out. Thanks for watching.